Hi, and welcome to The Bottom Line. I'm Pastor Paul Steele from Bethlehem Church in Austin, Minnesota. The Bottom Line is our weekly summary of the previous Sunday's sermon. And we are in a sermon series called Grace That Transforms, as we look at the book of Titus. Now, the book of Titus is a letter that the Apostle Paul wrote to one of his disciples, one of his students, a young man named Titus. What has happened is that Paul and Titus spent time on the island of Crete, evangelizing and planting churches. At some point in this process, Paul is called elsewhere. He has to leave, and he leaves Titus behind. And one of the responsibilities that Titus has is to establish leadership, elders in these different churches, in these different communities. And the reason this is important is because false teaching was infiltrating these young churches, and they needed leadership to guide them in the right direction and to provide the right teaching. And so not only does Titus have the responsibility of appointing elders, people who are respected, people who know the truth, who are able to teach the truth, but Titus is also to spend his time teaching the truth, teaching scripture, and being a good example of what it means to follow Jesus. And one of the truths, and I think this is really the primary truth that we need to receive or understand from the book of Titus, is that God's grace transforms us, and therefore we need to live lives that show this transformation. It's about living a righteous, holy life that makes the gospel attractive to others. And then in this same way, Paul continues, and for our sermon on Sunday, where we looked at Titus chapter 2, verses 11 through 15, Paul encourages Titus to continue to teach and to focus on grace, because grace is the foundation of this all. Let's look at what Paul told Titus in verses 11 and 12. He says, For the grace of God has appeared, bringing salvation for all people, instructing us to deny godlessness and worldly lusts, and to live in a sensible, righteous, and godly way in this present age. So Paul says, focus on grace, the love, the compassion that God has for us. Focus on that is seen in the person of Jesus, in his life, in his death, in his resurrection, and his ascension. Focus on that, because what that's going to do, as people learn that and meditate on that, that's going to help them understand the need to say no to an anti-God way of living. It helps them to say no to the temptations, to the worldly lusts that try to get us to live in a way contrary to the gospel. And when we focus on grace, we also are reminded of the hope that we have. The hope of Jesus returning and making everything right. The importance that the important thing that we discover in Titus is that correct doctrine is essential, but that correct doctrine has to promote correct living. The two go together. We have to believe the right things, and we have to live in the right way. And therefore, our big idea from Sunday is this: God's grace transforms us into God's people. God's grace transforms us into God's people who live righteous lives, eagerly await Christ's return, and are empowered to do the good works for his kingdom. God's grace transforms us into people who live righteous lives, who wait Jesus' return, and are empowered to do the works, the good works for God's kingdom. And our challenge this week is to live as people transformed by grace, and that begins as we thank God for his grace. So each day this week, thank God for the grace that we have received through Jesus, and the transformation that is evident in our lives. Hey, thank you for taking some time to watch. Thank you for being part of Bethlehem, even if you can't be with us in person. I want to again invite you to be a part of Bethlehem on Sunday mornings at 10:30. You can join us here on YouTube. You can join us on Facebook, or better yet, join us in person here in Austin, Minnesota, next to Ellis Middle School. And if there's a prayer request that you'd like me to be praying about, hey, leave a note, a comment, send me a message, and I'd be glad to add you to my prayer list. You can also support the work that we're doing by going to our website, BethlehemChurchAustin.com, and going to the Give tab and help provide us for the resources that we need to do the work of ministry here in Austin. Thank you for watching. Thank you again for being part of Bethlehem. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of the week, and God bless.